Am I the a-hole for threatening to call the police on my brother for trying to force me to babysit his daughter after I already told him multiple times beforehand that I don't want to babysit her? I, 29 male, have a brother, 27 male, who has a 4-year-old daughter. His daughter's mom passed away because of birth complications and has been raising her mostly alone ever since. Recently, he asked me if I could babysit her for the night so he could go on a date. I refused because I'm not experienced with kids, and frankly, because I simply don't want to babysit. My brother kept insisting, saying that he's too tight with money to pay for a babysitter, but I kept refusing to do it. However, one day at around 7 p.m., I suddenly hear a girl knocking at my door, and there was my niece, while my brother was nowhere to be found. I let her in my home, and then I started calling him multiple times, but he wouldn't pick up any of my calls. After half an hour, I ended up giving him a message that if he doesn't come back in 15 minutes, then I'll report him to the police for child abandonment. He came back after 20 minutes. Luckily for him, I didn't call the police yet. He was absolutely furious with me and started berating me literally in front of his daughter, but I eventually made him leave my house with my niece. However, afterwards, he kept giving me messages about how I failed as both a brother and an uncle, that I proved to my niece that I don't love her and just see her as a burden, and that I couldn't even allow him his night of fun when he hadn't been laid since his daughter was born. I messaged him that the last thing is his problem, not mine, so he needed to figure it out on his own, instead of pining on me against my will. However, this only got him to send even more venomous messages. My partner, however, thinks that I'm acting like an a-hole to him, and that we could have taken care of my niece for this night without creating a scene. Am I the a-hole for not having much sympathy for my brother's situation and not wanting to babysit his daughter? Now for the comments. Not the a-hole. Did he even know if you were home? What if you had been out on a walk and he just saw a car out front, for example, or someone had taken you out? What if you had been drunk or otherwise inebriated? You don't need a reason to not want to watch someone else's child, but your brother is out of line. If he can't afford a babysitter for an evening, he shouldn't be dating. If money is that tight, I feel like he isn't prioritizing the proper things, like his child. He abandoned his child so he could try and get laid. Your comment about not dating if he can't afford a babysitter is spot on, even if he had other family members willing to babysit for free. For real, I know money isn't everything in a relationship, but who in their right mind would date someone who can't even afford to spend $60 for a babysitter? I personally make a poverty wage, and that's one of the reasons I have taken myself off the dating market. Both things can be true. Your brother needs to figure this out, and you could have done him a favor. However, leaving the kid without permission is so far over the line that the line is a dot. Not a-hole. This is where I'm at. His co-parent, possible partner since Opie doesn't say, literally died. And Opie hasn't helped him with childcare once in 4 years? Of course, he is under no obligation to do so. But I can't imagine hating my sisters that much, or being that selfish of a person in general. I have very little experience with babies/toddlers, but I learned from my coworker because she was struggling with her health so much. Of course, brother is the biggest a-hole in this situation, especially with the whole sex frame. Not cool. This is definitely a not the a-hole situation, but overall, seems very everyone sucks here, unless Opie gives background info that justifies treating his brother like that. Next story. Would I be the a-hole if I go on vacation instead of my brother's wedding? My brother Tom, 36 male, and I, 26 female, have never had a really solid relationship. Due to our age gap, we didn't much spend time. And by the time I was old enough to develop a personality, he has moved out of the house. For the last 2 years, my brother and his fiancée Sarah, 32 female, have been planning their wedding, and it's coming up in September. I was asked to be a bridesmaid. I figured I was only asked as a courtesy since I'm her soon-to-be sister-in-law, but I still took it seriously, and I have been a bridesmaid for the last 2 years. Just a few weeks ago, I managed to save up to buy the $800 bridesmaid dress. Overall, in the last 2 years, between group outings to parties, dinners, lunches, clothes, etc., I spent thousands of dollars. Eventually, all the girls in the wedding and I became extremely close, and I started to get hyped for the wedding. Sarah recently got close with her brother's wife, Becky, 30 female. And last week she dropped the ball on me, that she no longer wants me to be a bridesmaid and she would prefer if Becky would take my place. It broke my heart a little, but it's her wedding and it's not my place to tell her how to run it, so I said it was fine. So yesterday I went to my brother's house to pick up the bridesmaid's dress and was going to see if I could return it since it was within the time frame. Sarah was completely appalled and said that Becky was going to wear it since she and I are the same size. I said that would be fine, but they would have to pay me the $800 for it. Sarah said that Becky couldn't afford to, and I should just be nice and let her use it, and said that I could keep it after the wedding. I explained that I'm not just giving away the dress, and I'm not ever going to use it after the wedding. After some bickering back and forth, I just ended up taking it and leaving. My brother and Sarah tried to compromise with me and say I could be the assistant flower girl, and I felt offended at the offer. After I said no, they then said that Becky could give me $250 for it. Again, no, and I returned the dress and got a full refund. I told them I understand that it's their wedding, but they are being extremely disrespectful to me, and I don't need to deal with it, and I'm not even going to the wedding. Today my coworker says she has an extra round-trip plane ticket to go to Miami that she'll sell to me for half the price. Plus, I would have to pay for half the hotel, and I can go hang out with her in Florida. The only downside is that I'll be in Florida for the week of my brother's wedding. So will I be the a-hole if I just go party in Miami instead of going to my brother's wedding? Not the a-hole. Go to Miami. A wedding is not an event where a soon-to-be sister-in-law and your own brother crap all over you, and you just smile and take it. A 26-year-old assistant flower girl? Really? How insulting. Opie, one of the nice things about declining an invitation is that you need not give a gift. A card of congratulations is all etiquette requires. And I think you've already overspent, both literally and emotionally, on this wedding. If it's the original plan, an adult flower girl / boy can rock it. I've seen people do dances, throw petals at guests, just absolutely dial the silliness up to 11. But as an afterthought, potentially following a little girl? Hell nah. Go to Miami and have a good time. Not a-hole. They disrespected you, so you don't have to be there if you don't want to. They literally removed you as a bridesmaid after they had you spend so much money. I'm proud of you for returning the dress, instead of letting them walk all over you and take it for free. You might not be able to ever be close with his brother if he finds out you chose partying in Miami over his wedding. Also, may affect what parents / other family think of you, but not sure if any of that is relevant. Honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if this was planned. They just happened to remove the bridesmaid that is the same size as Becky. They just happened to do it after Opie has raised the money to buy the dress, and then they try to force Opie to lend the dress to Becky or sell it at an extreme discount because Becky can't afford it? Smells fishy. I hope Opie has an amazing time in Miami. It will certainly be more fun than going to a wedding for family members who think they can treat her like disposable garbage. They did you dirty. That's what I was thinking. I would also lose out on the $800 dress. And if I was going to be the assistant flower girl, I would have to buy another dress. This whole ordeal has stressed me out, so maybe I need to relax in Miami. Next story. Am I the a-hole for asking my parents to please leave the parenting of their grandson up to me and my wife, yet not doing the same with my in-laws? I, 26 male, have a 3-month-old son with my wife, 24 female. He's our first child. I have a good relationship with my parents. However, they, especially my mom, have a difficult time respecting my boundaries, and they were a bit overprotective of me growing up. I am their only child, so naturally they are going to feel protective of me. While I wouldn't go as far as to describe my mom as a helicopter parent, she seemed to have a hard time allowing me to make mistakes. She would want to have a say in anything I was doing and offer advice whether I wanted it or not. When I was little, this was totally understandable, but as I grew up, it became very annoying. When I moved out, I told her that now that I'm grown up, she needs to respect my boundaries, as well as accept that I might do certain things differently from how she does. I've requested that she please ask me if I want help / advice with something, and to please respect my wishes if I say no. She seems to have a very hard time with us. She'll reluctantly say she'll try to do that. But honestly, I don't think she's making enough effort. We've argued about this many times. It really feels like she doesn't trust me. When my son was born, I asked both of my parents to please leave the parenting up to me and my wife. And if we need help, we'll ask. They agreed, though my mom seemed reluctant, which isn't a surprise. Now, I didn't think it was my place to ask my in-laws to do this because they're her parents, not mine. I told her that if she would like her parents' help/advice with raising our son, it was fine with me, and the decision of how much or how little involvement her parents had was up to her. I am also more comfortable with my wife's parents because she's the youngest of 4 children and therefore they have more experience as parents. They know when it's appropriate to offer help and when they should take a step back. Anyways, today we're having a barbecue for the 4th of July. We invited both of our families. It was the first time we've all been in the same room since our wedding. My mom saw how much my in-laws were helping with our son, feeding him, changing him, putting him down for a nap, etc. They're mainly doing this because my wife is busy in the kitchen. My parents took me aside and asked why I want my in-laws' help but not theirs, and I told her the reasons. Dad took it pretty well as he enjoys being a fun grandpa, but my mom is very hurt. Now I feel bad. I was looking forward to a fun day with our families, but now I'm feeling guilty. My mom basically is just standing around doing nothing and looks hurt. My feelings of wanting her to leave the parenting up to me and my wife hasn't changed, but I don't know how to express this without upsetting her. Honestly, I'm kinda wishing everyone would just go home. Now for the comments. It's one thing to say that you want your parents to stay out of any parenting decisions, but it sounds like you've pretty much asked them to not lay their hands on your son. Feeding and changing are basic care. Why can't they help with that? It sounds like your mom is trying to stay within the boundaries you've set, but is upset that your in-laws don't have the same/any boundaries. I can understand why she's upset. Your children are your parents' only chance to be grandparents, and you've decided they're not going to get much of a chance to do anything. You complain that your mom was too controlling in your childhood, and it seems the apple didn't fall far from the tree. Find a better balance. You're the a-hole. Man, I feel like people's responses are going to heavily skew based on whether or not they can empathize with OP. Being raised by a guilt-tripping, boundary-stomping mother, I can totally understand his hard boundaries. There's no balance because he has a lifetime of her not respecting his decisions as an adult, and has given up trying to reason with her. It sounds like the current situation is that the in-laws can freely help, while his parents have been told to back off and pretty much not touch the child. They could ask, would you like to give the baby his bottle? Or, please could you change him? That would involve them without handing over any control or decision making. It may work or it may not. If it doesn't, then they can readdress the boundaries. I'm going to go with not the a-hole. Some people just don't know when to quit, so it's best to not let them get started. It could also be in how the advice is delivered. We tried to let all of our parents do the same things with our son, but it wasn't working out. Some weren't good with safety, some ignored how we wanted things done, etc. It sounds more like your mom doesn't treat you as an adult, or at least struggles to, and your wife's family doesn't have that issue. That is going to cause some problems. I would maybe sit down with your mom and tell her as she gets better with understanding and respecting boundaries. You two, 3 with your wife, can reevaluate what you're comfortable with. Last story. Am I the a-hole for inviting my former stepson to a barbecue? I finalized my divorce last year. When things fell apart between us, she said she didn't want anything to do with my kids anymore, except for the one that is hers as well. But I didn't feel the same way about her son. I've always liked him. He was 17 when everything became official with the divorce, and I told him to keep in touch with me and that I would always be there for him. Last month was his high school graduation, and he invited me and all my kids. My ex was angry that I was there, but we didn't sit near her. It was my custody week with our shared child, and I told him he could sit with his mom if he wanted to, and he did. Afterwards, my youngest said his mom told him I was a bastard, which was real nice, I think. She ended up telling me over text how I ruined one of the most important days in her life for her. Well, the 4th of July is her custody week, and I asked if our kid could come over to my barbecue for a few hours. I also invited my former stepson. She said no immediately, even though I always make concessions for her, like having him go sit with his mom at his brother's graduation, which I never had to do. My stepson agreed to come though. I guess they have been fighting in the build-up to today, because she texted me a couple of hours ago saying our son was coming and her son was bringing our child over and then back home. She also said I ruined this holiday for her, like I ruined her oldest graduation. She said I am petty, hateful, resentful person that won't let her have any peace, and she hopes one day everyone sees my true colors. Am I really the a-hole? I just want to retain a relationship with a kid I care about. It's not easy to be someone's de facto dad for some really formative years in their life and then forget about them. I taught this kid to drive and bought him his first box of banana wrappers. How am I supposed to just drop him like a hot potato? But even my youngest thinks I'm being unfair to his mom. He said I need to stop being mean to her. So maybe I really am the problem. Info. Can I ask the reason for your divorce? Because it seems strange to me all this hate of your ex towards you for no good reasons, and the fact that she wants nothing to do with her son's half-siblings. But even my youngest thinks I'm being unfair to his mom. He said I need to stop being mean to her. Parental alienation from your ex, or you left something out if your youngest child also feels that you are bullying their mother. It's difficult to make a judgment with so little background info. We were constantly fighting. I felt like I was failing my kids as a father by exposing them to so much animosity. I realized we weren't a team anymore, but opponents in a battle. Our fights had taken over our lives. We couldn't get through a date without some argument resurfacing. We weren't intimate anymore. We were just roommates who bickered incessantly. Well, there's someone who's petty, hateful, and resentful in this story, but it sure isn't you. Congratulations for being the stepdad everyone wishes they had. You're doing great. Not the a-hole and take care. Also, the mom is alienating their youngest son against OP by telling lies about him, calling him names in front of the kid. OP, you're not the a-hole, but the mom really sucks in my opinion as per the post. Yes, you should be more concerned about your ex manipulating your youngest child against you. Not the a-hole. An invitation isn't a summons. He didn't have to come. You asked, he could have said no. As long as you are minimally respectful when you get a no, you're not being a terrible parent. It sounds like your ex may be trying to manipulate your youngest though.